Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite podcast, the podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom, from movies, comics, TV shows, video games, I think that's everything, trading card games, space. We got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here, as always, with Court. How's it going, man?
It's going great.
Going
great. I'm feeling very rebellious.
Ah, that is very apropos because of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about...
We're talking about Daredevil.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Not this time.
Not this time.
Next time, baby. We are here to talk about season 1 of Andor on Disney Plus, which was, I'm not sure there's been a show with more, I don't know how to phrase this, like disparity between expectations and results.
Right.
Expectations, desires versus results, because I don't think you and I included there weren't a ton of people that were like overly excited about this in the way that they're excited for the Obi-Wan show, obviously, or the season 2 of The Mandalorian, or even season 1 of The Mandalorian. I think there was a lot of intrigue behind, and, Pedro Pascal was attached. It was the first Disney Plus Star Wars thing. And then this, we talked about it when we talked about Rogue One some month or two ago. It was going to be very interesting to see where this kind of fell as far as how it would be received. And lo and behold, it's, being heralded as one of the best things that's ever been done in Star Wars, maybe even since the original trilogy.
Right.
And we'll talk about that. We'll dive deep into what made this show as good as we both think it is and what many others think it is. And before that, we got a little bit of news, not as much as most weeks, but we do have some news. So a couple things related to Chris Hemsworth that have come out over the past couple weeks. He did an interview, or maybe it was on his... Was it on his Disney Plus show that this happened?
So the announcement of the thing you're going to talk about was on the Disney Plus show, and the Thor-related thing was on Happy, Sad, Confused, the podcast.
Yeah, so he has, he had the show on Disney Plus where he kind of like discovers the world and discovers himself along the way. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's very interesting. And, he did learn something pretty big about himself, and it's kind of altered the trajectory of his acting career as he's decided, in the wake of discovering a genetic kind of finding about himself where he's, 8 times more likely to develop...
8 to 10, I believe it was.
Alzheimer's, and he's decided that he's going to step away from acting for a little while to spend time with his family, and, obviously nothing but the best for him. This is by no means a diagnosis of Alzheimer's for himself. It's just a discovery that he's made, and as we've preached on this podcast before, it's very good to see these actors and these prominent people being vulnerable. And I think that's an important thing, especially for someone like Chris Hemsworth, who's very visible, who is very popular, to be upfront about this and explain, again, as many actors, athletes have done in recent years, step away from their craft to spend some time with their family and themselves. And I just think that's a great move for him.
Right. No, I agree. And we definitely did talk about these people being actual human beings and people, not just these figureheads that get put into roles and that they're just caricatures. Like, they're actual people on the inside. They're actors at the end of the day, and just people doing their job. So all the best to him. I hope he gains as many memories. I hope his journey is just all full of positivity and love. And I know everybody's showing him a lot of love right now. And I know the look on his face, you can definitely feel it after you saw that video. So I'm glad that he made that decision. And at the end of the day, it's what's best for him. Whatever we want, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's what he needs. Yeah.
And then, he, in that other interview you talked about, he did remark on his future in the MCU, and he was very forthcoming about it, and saying, if he were to ever return to the Thor character, that he would require a drastic change in direction. Obviously in the wake of Thor Love and Thunder, I guess, he, among many others, feels like it went a little too far in the direction that Thor Ragnarok was kind of nudging it. He's praised the character's arc in Infinity War and Endgame as particularly something that he would maybe like to return to as far as the tone of the character. And I think I agree. I think we both agree that Infinity War in particular is probably the best representation of that character that we've gotten to this point. It brilliantly balanced the kind of regalness to the character, and as well as the power and the humor is also behind the character. So I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. What that means, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We'll see what that, especially in the wake of, what he decided to do with his career.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, I genuinely do think he's gonna maybe try to get through Infinity War. I think he's gonna try to get through Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, and whatever the 5th Thor movie would be. I think he'll probably try to do those and maybe call it quits. But what I think I kind of feel from him is maybe this might be a little bit of disdain for Taika Waititi in the last one. And I don't even think it's disdain in the terms of the man himself. I think it's more disdain, and it feels to me it's like a lack of emotional understanding for Thor, because he went on such this journey from Ragnarok to Endgame, and then you kind of usurp everything in Thor Love of Thunder for just a joke. It feels like for like a prolonged joke in the entire movie. And you definitely can feel like all those emotional bits that were earned in Infinity War and Endgame are just, they feel gone, and they feel just detrite from what happened in Love and Thunder. And I think he definitely wants to return to what made it, like that reset character. Like even Ragnarok had its emotional moments. So I think Taika Waititi is capable of it, but I'm not going to be surprised if they go out and get a new director. I don't think it's going to be the Russo brothers, but I would not be surprised if they go out and get somebody new and just say, hey, let's just try it. Maybe we do an older Thor. We just try something else. I have a feeling, I don't think you tease Hercules at the end. I think Hercules is going to be the main villain or quote unquote villain of whatever Thor 5 looks like. So if that's the case, and I do think he'll return, I think it's going to feel a lot different. It's going to feel a lot darker. And I mean, shows like Andor and movies like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is kind of, I think we're going to get into it a little bit, but I think for a lot of these universes, a return to that might not be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and again, I talked a bit about it when we talked about Wakanda Forever last week. It was just puzzling to me, like the Thor Love and Thunder thing, because it's not that Taika Waititi is this goofy, bombastic director. Like he is able to hit those biting, deep moments. Like, I mean, Jojo Rabbit's a perfect example. Thor Ragnarok's a perfect example. So I don't, there's an interesting story, I feel like, behind Thor Love and Thunder that maybe we don't know the full story of.
I feel like it might be something as like, they were trying to tell him to do stuff, and Taika Waititi's like, no, I'm not. I'm just gonna, like, I don't want to go as far as to use the word spite, but it's almost like, I don't really care what you guys think. You know what? Just because you said this, I'm just gonna have a laugh and just have a joke for a movie, and that's it. Like, I'm not gonna really take this as seriously as people would hope. Yeah.
So I mean, it's just interesting because, like we said, it's not. He's by no stretch a bad director.
No,
like he's
absolutely not.
If you look at his filmography, it's littered with just.
I mean, he's an Oscar-nominated Best Picture winner. Like or Best Picture nominee. Like that. He knows what he's doing, and I mean, we did see this in universe. It's not like it was just some pipe dream outside of universe. Like in universe, he revitalized one of the Trinity. So which was needed because the other two were in good places, especially after Civil War, and he was the last one that kind of needed that little bit of help.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be definitely interesting because, it's clear that is probably going to be the direction of Thor going forward. Is it's going to be a new director and a new tone, and what is potentially going to be Chris Hemsworth's last Thor movie, which, I mean, got to be grateful that it's even gone this far. I mean, you look at all the other characters from the first phase of Marvel are gone at this point, except for him. So it's cool that he decided to stick around in the first place. So Blade has been a movie that has gotten a lot of attention over the last few months. The reshoot, the rewriting, and the scrapping, and the starting from scratch. So we do have another new director. So Jan Damage, who is probably most famous for Lovecraft Country, is going to be directing this Blade movie.
Yes, I think that's a phenomenal choice. It's crazy that this happened because not only, I believe about like a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, I had me and a friend where we had an absolute full discussion about Lovecraft Country and how incredible that show was. That show is some of the best. You want to talk like lore of something, like fleshing out lore, including real world elements in there, and I think that's a great place for Blade to live, and just kind of understanding the supernatural element. You get the guy that maybe possibly made the best supernatural show in the last 5 years. So incredible choice. I don't know if they came up to a writer yet.
I think they did actually. I'll try and find that while you...
We need elevator music for moments like these. But yeah, this is my shameless plug to go watch Lovecraft Country, Jonathan Majors and Journey Smollett. That show just truthfully was breathtaking. It's expansive. I love the idea of this odyssey that they go on with the backdrop of the 1950s and kind of how you combat those two things.
So Michael Starberry has been the hired to write the screenplay, who is... the When They See Us writer. Okay,
so I think I'm kind of understanding what kind of story they're going for with this behind this. So obviously Blade, I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion they might have Blade be like the Blade age or the Blade era where it was the 40s or the 50s instead of the modern day. There could be a genuine possibility of that. And having When They See Us, I mean, an absolutely gut-wrenching story of the Central Park Five. If you don't know that story, it's really, really horrible thing that happened to 5 kids that were accused of sexual assault in New York. But just mixing those two elements, Ava DuVernay's show, and then kind of having that with the director of Lovecraft Country, I think Blade's going to be like this supernatural commentary almost. I think would be a good realm for that place to sit.
Yeah, I agree. I think we both kind of hoped that this was going to go in kind of a dark supernatural route, especially in the wake of Werewolf by Night.
Yep.
I think...
many people wanted, including me, wanted Giacchino, which would have been cool, but I mean, he's probably busy as busy can be.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be the same director as long as they maintain kind of that similar tone that Werewolf by Night established. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing with where the MCU is now, is they can really start diving into kind of specialized genres for not just individual projects, but kind of like slates of projects.
Right.
Like, give everything like a distinct kind of feel to it that'll be able to give, this obviously the longest running movie franchise in history, give it even more legs than it already has. I think that's kind of where the next kind of couple phases need to go, is diversifying your media and your genres and really give people something to look forward to, like something different every time. And I think maybe that's where Star Wars is also headed potentially. So, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good move. I think it's a great get for them. And, like we said, when this all happened with Blade, like, it's not the worst thing in the world to slow down a little bit.
People can misconstrue delays with bad. Sometimes delays could be great and detrimental to success. So I think that's a incredible decision that they made. I think it was one of those things where I didn't think about it, and then they announced that it was the Lovecraft Country director. I was like, this makes a lot of sense that this would be the thing that you go after. So
yeah,
we're gonna have Kit Harington in this as Black Knight? Or do you think? I think they're gonna save him for his own show. I think that's what they're gonna try to do, unless the Midnight Suns becomes before this, because right now it's feeling like the Midnight Suns is gonna be Blade, Black Knight, Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night. There's a lot of nights.
Well, the Midnight Suns.
You gotta
have all the nights in there.
It's all the nights.
I think they'll probably hold off, because you also don't want to like make that character like the derivative guy who just shows up in other people's things thing.
Yep.
Because you already have that with Val running around right now, so you don't need they need to find another formula to introducing characters that doesn't hinge on that. And I think we'll talk about Guardians of the Galaxy next week, but I think again those special presentations I feel like are really the kind of the tool that they need to start utilizing more and more, because it feels like we've only gotten 2 of these versus however many shows we've gotten, but the special presentations have been of pretty exceptional quality.
Yeah, and I think it's the length of what you're telling the story and the shot that you're taking at it, because some things don't need the grandeur of having the movie, but they don't need to be expanded to 6 to 9 hours. Like, that could be too much to handle. So, and I think it's funny, we're going to talk about Andor. I think Andor is structured perfectly the way that it is. So I think these Marvel shows can either go that direction, which I think Daredevil Born Again is going to go, or it can go in the direction of just doing these one-shots, these mock Marvel one-shots comics, and just doing, 40 to an hour of just follow a character on a mission. That's it. Yeah. And then you go after that.
Yeah. And then the last bit of news that I have, so a lot of people were wondering in the wake of Wakanda Forever, what would be the next thing that we see Tena Huerta's Namor in? And the answer may be, it might be a while, because unbeknownst to me, certainly, Universal actually owns the rights to Namor.
Interesting.
Which I did not know.
Me neither.
It's one of those things you wouldn't really know until it happens because nobody's making Namor properties.
Yeah.
Obviously, Universal most notably owns the rights to the Hulk, which is why we've yet to see Mark Ruffalo by himself. Right. In a solo thing. Yet. So, I thought that was really interesting. It just goes back to what we've talked about with Marvel, with what the genesis of the MCU was, with them selling off just characters left, right, and center to different movie studios, different licensing agencies, and Namor is one of those that they have yet to recoup, and one has to wonder if maybe they're going to get on some type of Spider-Man deal with Universal now that Namor has kind of catapulted to the mainstream, as Marvel's prone to do with their lesser-known characters.
Right. I don't know the validity behind this, but I heard that the rights are going to revert back to Marvel in 2 years regardless, so I do think that if that's not the case, that Marvel and Universal are just going to strike up some deal, like you said, akin to the Sony deal, where they just... Because whatever's happening on this world level side of the MCU, it's all leading to some sort of Hulk thing. That's been the big focus. You're getting the leader back, a notorious Hulk villain for New World Order. Like you're possibly going to do the Intelligentsian right, tried and true. So I do think that they're going to find a way to get both of them solo projects. It's equally because Mark Ruffalo, I think, deserves his own solo outing and maybe something a little bit more serious. And then I also think that the ascension of Tenok grants him his own solo project as well. With staying power with like the Illuminati or any type of group that you have in the MCU too.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things that, they probably didn't even think about up until the moment that they decided this was going to be the direction for Black Panther 2, introducing Namor, because, again, it's one of those things where, we first really saw this with the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were just like, we can pretty much take whoever we want and put them on a screen and people are going to watch and fall in love with these characters. And it seems to have happened with Namor. Like, people are totally enamored with this character now, given part to the performance. And now people are going to want to see him in more things, and they're going to have to negotiate for it unless they, like you said, just wait it out. But maybe you do wait 2 years before we see this character again. It's entirely possible. Yeah. But at the same time, I think they will try to maybe figure him into their larger plans. Yeah. Maybe even in a way that they didn't plan on before.
Right.
But.
And that happened with the first Black Panther movie, that it got to the point where it was the backdrop of the final battle in Infinity War. And the theater notoriously, and you talked about this during our review, the movie theater went nuts when the Wakandans showed up first. And there's a reason they were the first ones to show back up. So you never know what you have until you have it.
Totally agreed.
I got a last piece of breaking news for you.
Oh.
That, you ready for this?
Yes.
Legendary Entertainment launches worldwide film distribution partnership with Sony. So they're going to cut ties with Warner Brothers.
Wow.
Yeah. That gets really interesting. The only thing that's staying with Warner Brothers is the Monsterverse and Dune.
Oh, the Monsterverse.
Yeah, not the Monsterverse, yeah.
Gotta keep that.
Yeah, Kong and Godzilla, and then obviously Denis Villeneuve's masterpiece Dune. I'll say that with my whole chest any time of the day. Are both staying with Warner Brothers, but that means a lot of rights are... Sony just monopolized pretty heavily right there. That's a pretty big move for them. So I want to see what that move looks like. I wonder if they're going to try to get some new properties off the ground that Warner Brothers might have been holding off for a little bit too. So Sony's got a lot of room to play with. Thanks, Tom Holland. You did it.
That is very that's very interesting. That Legendary's moving away from Warner Brothers. You have to wonder if that's maybe in the wake of everything, all the reshuffling at Warner Brothers, whether make some distribution companies kind of wary, or they want to move in a different direction, or whatever the case is. It's a business at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's very, very interesting, and also smart on Warner Brothers' part to not totally get rid of everything.
Yeah, I think the big one for them was obviously the Monsterverse. So you have Kong and Godzilla, like, keep them, and they're probably... I have a feeling they're going to double down on Kong and Godzilla and have them really be front face, like, big piece of, the homepage of whatever HBO Max turns into, if it turns into anything. And obviously Dune, like, they're a franchise that can, contend with these other big franchises, but can also be this Oscar-worthy level of filmmaking and movie making.
Yeah, totally agree.
And it's got Timothée Chalamet.
Nah, that's all you need at the end of the day.
Everybody loves that guy. Bones and All is out. This isn't a shameless plug for Bones and All, but it's out.
Let's talk about Andor.
Yeah, let's talk about this show. What is this show?
What is this show? So it's the premise that nobody. It's one of those things that you never knew you wanted it.
Did you just use my own line that I used 2 minutes ago?
You never know you needed it until you got it, and that's what this show pretty much is.
Yeah.
So Cassian Andor, most famously for being obliterated at the end of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Yep. This was honestly one of the first Disney Plus Star Wars properties that was announced way back when, and people were universally were like, "Why?"
Yeah. And full apology, because I was one of those people that were generally like, "Why are we getting this?"
Especially, it almost felt like potentially the show was going to suffer from Black Widow syndrome.
Yeah.
Where, like...
too little, too late.
Yeah, like it was announced, however long ago, and then time passed, and we talked about Rogue One. It came out, what?
2016?
Yeah, so 6 or 7 years ago, and who cares about Cassian Andor?
Right.
We know where his story ends. We kind of already saw him do his thing in Rogue One. And then, I think where my mind started turning on this was when we did that rewatch for Rogue One.
Yeah, yep.
And we made the point that, like, there is something there.
There's something more about him.
To the Cassian Andor character that the movie obviously didn't get a chance to explore. But, like, it felt like, and obviously, I mean, this is kind of the through line of Rogue One, with the exception of Jyn Erso, who we're kind of introduced to. All these characters kind of feel like they're at the end of their character arcs.
Right, yeah, there's a journey, and there's sorrow, and there's hardships, and there's, in the great words of the movie Tenet, there's a detritus of a war that they lived through.
Yeah, and I think Cassian Andor is pretty much the best example of that, because like he makes allusions to kind of his past and how he got caught up in the rebellion, and he's like, I'm not a hero, yada yada yada. I'm not a leader, this, that, and the other thing, and that's really upon my rewatch of Rogue One is where I started thinking like maybe there is something to this Andor show, and then things started coming out about it. They got Tony Gilroy on board.
That was the big get for me, was getting Tony. It essentially, it's the same idea as The Last of Us getting, they get Neil Druckmann, and then you concert that with having the creators of Chernobyl. Like, it's all about the people you put on the production versus the actual thing, in my opinion, because it's gonna be the product of what you get and who you put on it.
Tony Gilroy, obviously most notable for the Bourne trilogy of films. Michael Clayton in Duplicity, which gained him Academy Award nominations. So
even to the score, you get Nicholas Britell as well, who just came off Succession and is a Academy Award nominee, if not winner, if I'm not mistaken. I know he's 100% a nominee, so the talent you're putting around is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was announced that, this would not be shot in the volume like The Mandalorian has. It was going to be a lot of practical sets. So just based on all the things that were coming out about it, it was clear that they were aiming for something different than what we've been presented in The Mandalorian and then most recently in Obi-Wan, that this was going to be a kind of ground level political thriller, basically is how this was being pitched, and man, they absolutely nailed it, in my opinion. This show was absolutely enthralling. It's tense.
Yeah, this show is... It's the war in Star Wars. It's the part of war that people don't talk about, and it's probably the more important part of the war. It's the day-to-day. It's the people. That's what the show is. The show is the idea of either the human being or the sentient being. This is what the show is all about. How these people have to live their lives. What oppression looks like, and a true sense of. It's not this big grand Skywalker theme of like, these characters that you're falling in love with, these action heroes. This is the gritty grime of, if somebody decides to bomb somebody, that they're gonna, the entire rest of the galaxy is gonna get oppressed after that. Like, it's all these smaller ideas that, lead into something grand, and the subtones and the subtext in this show is just absolutely just incredibly written, and just the way it's structured is just, it's just breathtaking what they were able to create.
Yeah, it's not a story of heroes and villains. Nope. It's just a story of people who believe in their causes and are willing to commit to a various degree of actions.
And to even further that, it's not only about people that are committed to their causes, it's some people needed to be awakened to those causes and even to be, get their eye. It's that whole monologue from the last episode, like, I was asleep the whole time, like, I wasn't aware and awake to all these things.
Yeah, it's and for my money, across not just the Star Wars shows but all of the Disney Plus properties, just the pacing and the structure of how the 12 episodes were laid out was absolutely brilliant, because unlike the Marvel shows, this was not just a singular. There was obviously an overarching journey that Cassian Andor goes on, but it's not really an overarching story per se. It's a series of these mini 3 to 4 episode arcs that, culminate in the finale, which is ultimately what you want, because, I know one of the critiques of the show possibly is that it starts pretty slow. And that's, for my money, that's why they essentially released the first 3 episodes in one shot. Because, if you do watch that first episode on its own and have to wait a week, you might not be particularly grasped by it. But they gave us basically the first kind of story arc in the first week is what they did with, kind of the genesis of Cassian Andor and kind of how he becomes wrapped up in rebellion.
Man, Diego Luna is he's incredible. I mean, incredible is an understatement. He's got this, like, what's the best way to put this? He's got this, like, anger to him. Like, he's got this edge to him, which I think, like, he's like a darker version of what Han Solo is. Like, he's not to be messed with. He's so rugged. Like, he's so mean and angry the whole time, but
he's kind of a deadbeat.
Yeah, he is kind of a deadbeat. I think that makes his arc so much more favorable and so much more, likable, is because he starts off as this deadbeat, and then once it's this whole idea of being awake or being asleep. He was asleep the whole time, and then once he gets awoken, like, that's when it truly starts to kick off a little bit. And you get to that but you know what the show does well? It takes your main character, it does this thing where all your side characters, they all influence him, but it's an influence back. Like, because a lot of the times your main character will get beats from the side characters, but this show works both ways. Like, they also gain perspective from him being this person that may not want to be in it. It's in it for the money, but you look at somebody, let's just pick 2 characters. Let's look at Nemec, and then let's look at Luthen. So I think Nemec's one that's really interesting, because Nemec looks at him, so Nemec is just like, I'm fully committed to this cause. I'm the one that is the full out, I'm the essentially one of the poster childs of this idea of this rebellion. And then he looks at Cassian, and he's just like, as dark as it may seem, like, we might need people like you, the people that, may only be in this for the money, because at the end of the day, you're going to get this done. Like, you're going to get some of these things done. And then you look at somebody like Luthen. Luthen's not a good person. Like, as much as he's doing a good thing, essentially, like trying to, free the galaxy, he's not a good person, and he'll do it by any means. Like, I mean, he says he'll kill multiple characters in the show. He'll leave people out to dry just so, the rebellion can keep taking place. So it's not about
ultimately,
the
hit the planet that, the backdrop of this is to kill Cassian Andor. At the end of this, because he's a loose end, essentially. And the way the rebellion set up, the way my rebellion set up is, you can't have these people all knowing who each other are, because all it takes is one person to get captured and interrogated, and someone slips up and the whole thing unravels. And I think just going through more of these characters, like Mon Mothma is a great kind of conduit for that very concept, because she's in such a high position of power, like kind of pulling the strings to these things, and she has to be so careful.
Yeah, this show has got a lot of intensity to it, and it's funny that you think about a Star Wars show, you think your intensity would come from, your action set pieces or anything like that. It comes a lot from Mon Mothma's character, because she's in a place, like, there's a really great scene in this show where she needs to kind of, she tells him, like, keep smiling this whole thing, like, don't stop smiling while we're talking. Like, she's in these places where, like, the slightest slip up means death. It's immediately death, and then not only death to herself, because what does it matter? It's death to the entire rebellion, and that's the thing that they can't have at this point, too.
Yeah, because she's in Coruscant, she's in the Senate, which, if you follow the mainline movies, that's Palpatine's seat of power. Like, there's people everywhere there that are beholden to the Empire, even within the Senate, which is supposed to be this kind of, stage for individuality and unique ideas, but at the end of the day, like as we saw in Revenge of the Sith, like Palpatine has essentially assumed power and the Senate is pretty much just like a puppet state.
Yeah, it's to the point where in this show it's almost empty. Like people don't even listen to what she's saying, they're just talking amongst themselves, like
not unlike real life.
Yeah, it just it's a place that doesn't carry the same weight that it did, and Mon Mothma is at the point where it's so just incredible to see where these characters start and where they end, because the idea of radicalization is just littered throughout this show. Like they're all radicalized through these ideas, and even if they were already committed to the cause, the things that happen really change them, and that's a test of true character development and good storytelling.
Yeah, it's really impressive what managed to happen here, and it's not this clean cut kind of thing. You know, that's I think why the structure of this works so well for me is like it almost works like, you know, we talked about The Last of Us, how The Last of Us kind of does this with like the side characters. Like you're introduced to this like kind of group of side characters within the confines of this one little kind of narrative arc, and then they're either dealt with or they're left behind and you never see them again.
Yeah.
When you talk about, you know, obviously the crew that he hooks up with Aldhani, most of them die.
Right.
Which is really, you know, it gives the show a type of gravitas that kind of like a show like Game of Thrones kind of has.
Yeah, yep.
Where like you're introduced to these characters and then they're kind of dispatched of, or they're never seen again.
Right. And that arc in that show, the episode 4 through 6 is probably some of it's just breathtaking. Just the way it looks as well. This show is shot just extremely well. Locations. Go on locations because a good point is like The Mandalorian is the sound stage central because, you know, you're having to do a little bit more grand things, but the idea of going to locations, building sets around the locations, like I feel like there's no excuse anymore for anybody else, because if these companies have all this money, then why aren't we going on location wherever we can and trying to pull off what Andor tried to do? And I can't imagine a show like this has a higher budget than a show like The Mandalorian, than some of these Marvel shows that they're pushing out. So I just gotta hope that, again, Marvel takes a look at this and is just like, maybe we try to get something like this out. Just put a little bit of trust back into us, I would say. So,
and I mean, you know, not for nothing, but Disney put the show on regular TV.
Right. So people were saying that was a cause because nobody watched it regularly. Take that what you will, but I think it's just the trust, because putting this on TV, in my opinion, is trust in what they were able to create here.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I think this is one of those rare kind of fandom shows that transcends the fandom.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, I think where we get tripped up is categorizing this as like good Star Wars TV, where I think this is just good TV.
Yeah, man. I've seen a decent amount of TV this year. This is some of the better TV that I've seen this year. It's tense. There's drama. The acting is also incredible in this show. Like I said, Diego Luna he really leads this whole cast, but it's the ideas that they kind of get presented. Like, all their characters have so much validation behind them and what they feel. Even for your, you know, quote unquote antagonists in the show. That's why I think it's best presented. There are no antagonists, and even these people that are working for the Empire, if you want to switch perspective for them, none of them are really antagonists. And a really good perspective to have on that is switch your way of thinking. Like, these rebels are bombing these places, or anything's happening, like, now it's dropping back on me, this regular citizen of this random planet. Like, their actions, like, the Empire's here and they might be annoying, but I can still go to the store and buy something, or still go see my family, versus these rebels are making my life tougher by, you know, forcing their hand and making restrictions tougher and harder.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of, they really do tackle the authoritarianism and the fascism that, you know, was the foundation of the Empire when George Lucas created it. Like, they weaponized the rebellion against the rest of the galaxy, because, you know, after the Aldhani heist goes off, the Empire's like, okay, they get in there, like, the ISB gets in this little conference room, and they're like, we just need ideas on how to kind of ferment this rebellion without going to war, essentially. And they're like, well, we'll just, you know, stricter laws on, you know, different crimes, you know, attacks on on any rebellion supporting region. Like that's I think they say quadruple times the amount that was stolen during the heist, because they realize like the easiest way to snuff out a rebellion isn't to go directly to war with them. It's to get the regular kind of passersby, the regular people to turn on the rebellion and be like, we can't have you guys screwing this up for the rest of us, you know?
Right. Let's talk about this show, specifically episode, or I think the best way to consume this show is arc to arc. So the first arc, I'd call this kind of like the prologue arc, is the introduction to everybody. So you get introduced to Cassian Andor. Also, you get to introduce to child Cassian Andor. That arc, some people were not happy about that because it didn't really pay off, but I think you made a good point, is that that's the point. Like, it's not, sometimes there does not need to be this, it's dark, it's sad. Like, so the whole beginning of the show starts with him kind of looking for his sister, and then he finds out his sister's just dead. That's it. that's the whole thing about that. There's nothing more than that. Like, his sister's gone. Like, this is how that it feels like real life. Like, your sister's just gone. Like, there's no big payoff or cameo that happens. Like, she's gone, unfortunately.
Yeah, like, it's not quite the inspiration for like him becoming this grand rebel leader. It's just, it was his inspiration for just going on his own personal journey, and incidentally he got wrapped up in all this other stuff. Yeah,
and he's selfish. Cassian is. He's a selfish person. He's a moocher. He mooches off other people. He's a favor person, so he asks people for favors all the time. That's like who in his heart of hearts he is at the beginning of this. Yeah. But radicalization can truthfully change somebody, and he's truthfully changed by the end of this. Versus like somebody like Luthen, they were changed prior, but they can tell you what you want to hear, but they're not truthfully that person that you want to believe they are. But Cassian, in my opinion, he truthfully did have a full out arc of change. Like, his ideas were changed. So that first arc, we my corpo guy, the biggest simp in the galaxy,
Surreal Karn.
Yes. So Cyril's just, he's a mid-level manager of, and this is a cool concept. I don't think this is, Star Wars lore and all, but this isn't probably the first time it's been introduced, but for live action, just for this context, he's just like a security guard, but not for the Empire itself. It's just for these corporation planets that, pump out all this money for the
private security, basically.
Private security for a planet. That's it. So 2 of his officers are out and about having a couple drinks. Cassian's looking for his sister, and these 2 idiots say, they're just, badgering him, and they won't leave him alone. And lo and behold, Cassian Andor's got that dog in him. Kills the both of them.
As we have seen in Rogue One, he's very quick to end a dispute.
Yep. He doesn't mess around. He does not. That beginning also showed it's a true force of how great this show looked right out of the gate. Showed you like this show feels, looks, sounds different. You get Nicholas Britell's score to begin the show, and it's just it invokes this difference. There's so much of a level of. I think people confuse the idea of with a grand scape with big. It's not the idea of big things are happening. It could just be small things are happening, but it's just the way you kind of handle them is what you can get out of it. So, just definitely a big old difference. So he takes care of the officers, and Cyril's like, nobody's gonna deal with this. I think, what does his boss go out, and he's just like, you're in charge? But his boss tells him, don't do anything. Don't.
Yeah, this is,
They shouldn't have been there in the first place, because that's like a brothel house. They shouldn't have been there. We're not going to do anything about this, because they would have probably been killed regardless of this anyway, so we're not going to do anything. He's just it's all these ideas in this show are so cool, because Cyril's whole thing is just I can genuinely I can be the greatest Imperial officer if I keep working my way up, and then I can get into the Empire itself.
And he wants to root out what he perceives as corruption within his own job.
Right. But that doesn't exist. These are gonna be absolutes all the time. It's this idea that he can have a genuine change, and it's good to juxtapose it against Cassian, because Cassian's a person that doesn't really care about all this stuff at first, and Cyril's for his cause is fully committed to everything, but you find out one's a farce, and Cassian can kind of ascend to something better too.
Yeah, and then Cassian goes home to Ferrix, to his home planet. That's where we're introduced to Marva, who is his surrogate mother. Yep. And you get kind of their backstory throughout this arc, that she kind of just rescued him from his home planet when his sister and all of his people were kind of rooted out by the Empire, and she kind of just took him in because he was there and alive.
And that was his first introduction to, like, you know, rebel activity. That was extremely early rebel activity, though. Like, that was early on, just, you know, small little bits and pieces of it. And then we kind of divulged from that a little bit. This all comes to a head in the third episode, and I mean, the first two are good in terms of, like, giving you, it just kind of acclimates you to what the world feels like, so it's not like this, you know, wholly colorful, big budget, or I think this show has big budget, but, like, you know, this big Star Wars world, it kind of acclimates you to, like, it's gonna be a little smaller, you're gonna deal with different characters you've never seen before, and they're gonna feel like normal people you could know. That's, I think, what the best thing about this first 3 episodes does.
Yeah, we're introduced to Bix and Tim. Bix is kind of Cassian's former flame. Tim is the one who, like, that Cassian Andor is trouble. You know?
We don't want to upset anybody. You better keep away from him.
And Cassian, in the meanwhile, he goes back to Ferrix to sell this Star Path unit from that he lifted off of an imperial ship that's worth a lot of money. So he asks Bix to put him in touch with her buyer, who we don't know quite who that is.
Who's that?
And all the meanwhile, Cyril Karn is going, his boss left town, and he's the temporary man in charge, and he's gonna find Cassian Andor.
And even though he was told, don't do it, there's no point, like,
he sees Cassian as a pelt to add to his wall.
Honestly, for me, it's like an example like that. It's not only like it's an example for him, because a great point was made about the fact that all these Imperial officers, so give me some, you got Thrawn, you have from who's the original? Tarkin is the original. You have Krennic from Rogue One. They're all personal gain guys. They're not for the Empire guys. Cyril's for the Empire type of guy, and that essentially could be his downfall, is that he's for this cause that at the end of the day, how much work he'll ever give them does not truthfully care about him in the slightest. They'll just get the next guy up.
Yeah, and then through all this, we're introduced to Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen for the first time, who is just this magnetic personality.
His voice is just incredible.
Great performance, and he basically is the foot in the door for Cassian Andor. He's like, look, Cassian Andor, why don't you do something great, be greater than what you're doing?
Yeah, the show does a good job of giving you the reason why, like, Andor is, like, being recruited essentially for the rebellion, because he's capable. It's not like he's just this guy that, you know, they can just add soldiers to be shot. Like, he's a capable person that knows how to get what he wants, and that's the perfect thing for a rebellion. Specifically for him, for Stellan Skarsgård's character, though, because, again, he's a person that's just about, I need this by this time, and this needs to get done. I don't really care about people or who dies, who lives. That does not matter to me in the slightest.
And then, you know, Tim.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so the Corpos arrive on Ferrix because they get the hint that Cassian might be there, and then Tim, just full-blown sellout mode, sells Cassian out, you know, and he's doing it for what he thinks is the right reason. He doesn't think Cassian's a good guy. He wants to protect his girlfriend, and that's what happens. He sells Cassian out, and then the chase is on, essentially. And then, you know, he dug his own grave. Tim is eventually, you know, shot and killed because, you know, the Corpos don't care about these people on this planet.
No, an incredible action sequence in there. That action sequence with Luthen and Cassian is really well done. This kind of, you know, shootout, essentially, this prolonged shootout, I think, is really well done in there as well. But also, it's not just about the idea that it's a shootout. There's actual story development within the shootout, so there's, like, actual good dialogue within the fact that they're getting shot out this whole time. And what it does, it's not only just telling you what's going on, it makes you more understand what these people are about, too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then, you know, you just see kind of how the actions of the few can affect them any. Like, in the case of, like, in Tim's case, he thought he was genuinely doing the right thing, but he thought he was protecting, you know, not just Bix, but the people of that town by turning Cassian in and kind of getting him out of their hair. But in what it ultimately did was just made, you know, everyone come down harder on, you know, and he eventually loses his life because they're interrogating Bix, you know, and she didn't even do anything, but she got caught in it, and then he got caught in it, and it cost him his life.
Right.
And that's essentially the crux of what the rebellion ultimately is.
Yep.
And then that's kind of, like you said, these first 3 episodes kind of serve as the launch point for the rest of the series, because then we get into the, I guess you could call it the Aldhani Heist Arc. And it's what Luthen has basically taken Cassian to do.
Yep.
You're going to do this thing, you're going to hook up with this group of people, and you're going to do a heist that's going to it's not going to cripple the Empire, but it's going to put them on notice.
Yep, it's like the young sports team, like in the NBA or the NFL, like it's their one playoff moment where they let you know, like, we're here, like we're going to be here for a little bit, and that's what this Aldhani heist is like. This is their let the Empire know that we mean business. We're not just random acts of rebellion. Like there's actual,
we have a plan.
There's a plan behind all this. So this is probably, and I think in my opinion, oh man, this is even tough to compare because the prison arc in here is just, I think, is equally as good as this.
Yeah.
But this heist arc is really well done. It's well crafted, and this is where you start to get to the ideas of, the themes of what this show truthfully is about. And you get that through one character, and once we get into all of our favorites, but probably my favorite character, Nemec, he's fully dedicated to the cause, but it's so heartbreaking because you can feel like, what I love? I love that they don't shy away from his fear. Like, that's why it feels so real. Like, because you think about these heroes that are for the rebellion, like, Nemec truthfully is kind of scared of what he's about to do. Like, he says, I'm fully committed, I know what I have to do, but, like, it doesn't exclude me from actual human feelings that I have, and I think that's where the show really highlights itself.
Yeah, I really liked all of these characters that we get introduced to, because they are committed, but all committed in their own ways, and for their own reasons. They're not totally unified behind one cause. They're kind of taking what they've experienced, and that's kind of brought them together, as opposed to, like, we're all kind of like, it's a contrast to how, like, the rebels are presented in, say, A New Hope, where, like, they're all unified behind the rebellion cause, yada yada. But, like, this group is kind of motivated by their own kind of motivations, right? Like, and they don't know a ton about each other. Like, there's revelations made about each other that they don't know about.
Right.
One of them is an Imperial double spy, double turncoat. One's a former stormtrooper. We have Skeen, who's just kind of, you find out he really is just in it for himself. You have Nemec, who feels like the most kind of...
Right, he's the purest form of what this whole thing is about. And I think, in my opinion, his character service is, like, again, the Star Wars, the war in Star Wars, like, whatever that line that Denzel had in Crimson Tide, it's like the idea of, like, war itself, like, war is politics with aggression and with, fighting, and politics is war without it. So Nemec's getting to the point where he understands, and that manifesto that he delivers and he gives to Cassian, and then we don't get it fully paid off into the last episode. That's one of the best payoffs in this entire universe, is what is the manifesto? I never thought we'd hear it, and then you hear it in the last episode. The show monologues with the best of them.
It really does.
There's 4 separate monologues in this show, and all of them are just gut-wrenching to hear. Stellan Skarsgård gets one. What's her name? His mom's name?
Marva?
Yeah, Marva gets one at the last episode. We'll save the one for a second once we get to the prison arc, and then obviously Nemec has his manifesto, which I would count as its own monologue in of itself.
Yeah, and then, speaking of what's going on Coruscant with Luthen, like, we find out what, like, his kind of day job is.
Yeah.
He's an antique dealer.
That's it.
I love the duality of his performance, where he's kind of this, like, dark and sinister, you don't really know what's up with him, and then he's like this magnanimous antique dealer with a different wig.
Right. He's 2 different people, and I mean, you gotta think he believes he's 2 different people too, and it's possibly tearing him apart. And once he launches into his monologue at the end of episode 10, you kind of understand everything. And what his big thing is, it's sacrifice. He's had to sacrifice all these things for rebellion, and, like, he's even had to sacrifice a lot of his humanity. And if a big theme is what war does to humanity in this show, then Luthen, as ever much of a scoundrel that he is, he's had to sacrifice just as much as anybody else.
Then that's where we're introduced to Mon Mothma for the first time. Also, Genevieve O'Reilly is tremendous.
Yes,
in this as Mon Mothma.
She has to play a spy. Essentially, she truthfully does. She has to play like this, face front political figure that's well liked and well received. That's also committing criminal acts this whole time.
Yeah.
To try to give freedom to the entire galaxy. Like she has like this different perspective because she has to see like, because they're all seeing like, the war aspects of this, but she's having to see like the true power is the political power. She has to see all this political power being stripped from everybody and given to these super powerful rich people. And it's really hard to watch for her. And that's why I think she, becomes radicalized and wants to do what she wants to do.
Yeah. And then in the meanwhile, Karn is on the back end of the find out part of F around and find out.
Yep.
He's disgraced, he's fired, and he's sent to basically go back and live with his mom.
Yep.
And then these next 3 episodes are essentially just it's a perfect crescendo to the heist itself.
Yeah. Yep.
It's very like, it reminds me a lot of what I liked a lot about Top Gun Maverick.
Yep.
Like it drills, it introduces the characters, it drills the mission,
Even the small pieces of the mission, like just them walking with the other Imperial officers, just so the walk looks right, so nothing feels out of place. Like those are all small details that give to like a grand finale. So
like drills the mission.
Yep.
Like what your expectations are, and then you get to episode 6,
and it's the mission, and you're tense the whole time because if something's wrong, then it's wrong. Like something's gonna go wrong. So episode 6, I think you might pick that. This is one of the crowning achievements of Star Wars itself. Man, it's just you're involved, you're invested with all these characters too, down to the former stormtrooper, down to Cassian, down to Nemec, down to the Imperial officer that rebelled but they don't know it yet. Like all these things, I kind of like how they put it too, because they put the Imperial officer that's on Aldhani, like his family's also there that whole time, and then they add these other real world ideas of like these other countries invading other countries and like just upending their culture because they don't care about it, just to have their place and kick them out of there. So there's this huge celebration because they call it the Eye. There's this huge meteor storm that passes over that happens once in every 4, or was it 40 or something? Like it was a long time.
Like that,
so but the Empire doesn't really care. They think they're superstitious just zealots that doesn't matter to them. And again, that's another subtle piece that's introduced that like other Star Wars projects wouldn't bother to be asked to do, but like a project like this can finally tackle these smaller incidents like this.
And then the mission goes off and lives are lost. We lose most of the crew that we were introduced to.
It's Rogue One. That's the prelude to Rogue One.
Yeah, basically, like most of these characters die except for Skeen survives, and then Nemec survives briefly.
Yes,
and then Vel and Cassian.
Yep.
That's it. That's the only people that live.
Yep.
The other members of the crew are dispatched of, and the story goes on. Like that's what the show does really well. Like. Yeah. And then episode 7 is basically the post-mortem of the heist. Right. Essentially.
Yeah, and the only other thing I wanted to add is Nemec being killed by money is just so poetic if you think about it. Like
it's such an innocuous way to kind of die.
Yeah, he literally is crushed by money and the corporate greed, which is the Empire. The very thing that they need to fund everything is the thing that he was killed by. But that sequence is just, oh my god, that sequence, man, is just, it's so great.
And the climb, which is echoes Rogue One when K2SO tells Cassian and Jin to climb, and Nemec is telling Cassian to climb. Like there's such just care and attention given to every moment of the show that I don't think can be understated enough.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, episode 7 is essentially the post-mortem where they try to get Nemec to this kind of doctor, and then Cassian is talking with Skeen, and Skeen's like, why don't me and you just go?
Yeah, we can leave. We did our part, so let's
40 million credit or 80 million credits on that ship.
Let's split it and leave.
And Cassian just
shoots him. Yep. And that doesn't happen without a character like Nemec being like Nemec, and you finally understand like Nemec might have not fully sold him, but he got Cassian thinking a little bit like, we actually doing, like, this might be the first time in my life, like, or maybe the second time, because he probably wanted to put away all that trauma, because he did fight with all of his people before on his home planet. And now you get to the present day, and he probably wanted to put all that stuff behind him, but, you know, he can't like, that's truthfully Cassian's destiny, in my opinion, if you want to talk about that, is, like, he is to be this, you know, leader of this rebellion, or this sect of this rebellion that, you know, leads people into the future.
Yeah, and he just shoots Skeen, and he goes, he confronts Val, and he's like, look, I'm leaving.
Yeah, he tells her the truth. She doesn't believe him at first. He's just like, he just tried to, because they believe him. They're just like, you killed him, and they're like, he's just like, yeah, because he said he was going to steal half this money. He's just like, I don't want any of the money. I'm just going to go. And then he gets Nemec's manifesto to keep, because he says he would have wanted you to have it. And just the fact that he sees something in him that the rest of us don't see. Like, Nemec believes, he sees this bigger picture that maybe nobody else sees, but is going to be realized. And all those things, they don't pay off in, like, the end of Rise of Skywalker is what Nemec's whole dream pays off at.
Yeah. And then, you know, the ISB gets together and they're informed of everything. And this is where you start to see the wheels start turning of, what's her name? Debo? Miro.
Yeah.
Deidre Miro, where you start to see, like, her kind of personal ambitions start turning a little bit.
Yeah, so she is essentially the perfect ISB officer, but again, she's one for the cause versus, you know, her personal gain, but everybody around her is for personal gain. Like, they want to get after whoever they get after just so they can get higher ranking and just so they can be more recognized.
Well, my one guy calls her out in the middle of the meeting.
Right.
And he's like, she's been doing this, and this, and the superior's like, has she?
Yeah.
She's like, and he's like, good.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the rest of you guys should have been doing this.
And then he even tells her, like, in a little sidebar, he's like, like, you're doing well, but watch your back, because everyone else is going to try and, like, come for your neck now, essentially.
Yep.
And then, so Cassian goes back to Ferrix. He goes to see Marva, and he's like, I have this money. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, he doesn't want to be part of this rebellion.
Yeah.
He just got his money, and now he wants to go live a life in solitude.
Right. But again, I think he got thinking a little bit. Like, a little piece of him was awakened of, like, all right, I'm going to get out of here, but, like, I think I just did a good thing. Like, I finally feel like a good man, and she's dying. She's not going to be around for much longer as well. So, yeah, we jump to this, and then Cassian gets arrested.
Yeah, and that's incidentally.
In the Miami Beach of Star Wars, he gets arrested.
Yeah, it turned into, like, Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Like,
which is great.
He gets just caught up in a random act of vandalism.
Yeah, which he wasn't even a part of. He was literally just walking by, but again...
I'm just a tourist.
Yeah, but again, that is the whole thing of... It's the repercussion... This show is so smart about, you know, not only... It's this huge payoff, right? But it's the payoff to the payoff itself. Like, this is what's going to happen. Like, now the stranglehold is as tight as it's ever been before. So he gets arrested and sentenced to 6 years. 6 years for nothing.
For standing around.
There's no judicial system of him, you know, being tried. You're just told this is your sentence and you're going. And then
he goes.
Yep. And then we launch into the prison arc in the show.
Every great show has a prison arc.
Yep. Arrow's got a prison arc.
Prison Break.
You beat me by 1 second. I was just about to say Prison Break I think Prison Break had a decent prison arc.
So every great show has a prison arc, and this is no different.
Yep.
But it should be mentioned in the meanwhile, Cyril Karn is rehabilitating himself. Yep. He gets a pencil pushing job
with his uncle.
But he's screwing around, still trying to find Cassian Andor because he feels like that'll be his ultimate vindication of his commitment to the Empire. Of he can bring them Cassian Andor, and he's like, there's more to this than meets the eye. It's not just this random thing. Like, this Cassian Andor is the linchpin behind a much greater scheme. Right.
But the ISB brings him in because, you know, they see him sniffing around because obviously they have the Empire has their hand in everything, and so they bring him in. And boy, does he fall in love at first sight. He
loves a woman in charge.
He loves a woman in charge. So he's just like, I could find Andor and we can fall in love right now. It's honestly a win-win if you want to think about it. But again, he's fully committed to this cause. Meanwhile, Cassian's in jail. it's really tough to watch some of this show is tough sometimes. This show is brutal sometimes, and
this arc too.
This prison arc is probably the most brutal that the show is, because it doesn't shy away from, real world connotations of what happens in some of these prison systems as well. You have no shoes, you're electrocuted if you step out of line. They have heat floors or cold floors, so extreme heaters, extreme cold right away if you step out of line. And then the genius of having this idea is presented through, lo and behold, drum roll, Andy Serkis comes back to the Star Wars universe as Kino Loy, and I watched the episode. I had to do. I was like, is that my man? Is that him?
Yeah.
And it was Andy Serkis. So he essentially plays, and it's this real world thing of like, you get somebody, if you want to oppress somebody, you get people that look like you to oppress you too. So, he's essentially like, he runs
the yard.
Yeah, he runs the yard, which is really interesting. But he's still a prisoner with them. So essentially you don't know what they're building, but they're just, it's labor. And Cassian immediately sees through the BS, and he's just like, we're cheaper than droids. We don't need to be built or programmed.
They're incentivized to outwork
everyone else. Yep, so it's competition based, which is smart. And then you just bring in a new man if somebody else dies, and you don't have communication with the other floors. But some of them around the prison yard are a little, they're also fed up. So you can feel that they, something's brewing, and they're ready to do something about it. And you could tell they needed somebody like Cassian to actually make this, dream become a reality.
Yeah. And Cassian starts kind of poking around.
Yep.
He's like, have you ever thought about breaking out of here?
Yeah. Immediately, Cassian's like, I'm not staying in here for 6 years. Like, I will get out of here.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, Kino Loy is motivated by the idea that he only has 240 some odd shifts to go before he's released.
Right.
Or so he thinks.
Right. Right. The dark truth of this is that you do not, your shifts are never over. You just get transferred to another level, and then you just, are told to keep quiet, and then you just keep going. And if you speak the truth, you're just going to be killed. That's it. You just get killed. And it's to the point where something happens, and they shock an entire floor, and they kill over 100 men in one fell swoop. And that's when Kino starts to become, again, it's this idea of becoming awakened. Kino's just like, I'm never getting out of here. I'm never getting out of here.
And then while all this is going on, like, they're still back on Ferrix are kind of dealing with the repercussions of Cassian's actions, because now the Imperials are there for good.
Yep.
And they're trying to find out where Cassian Andor is, and Marv is getting sick, and Bix is trying to take care of her, so she contacts Luthen.
Right.
And Luthen is like, nah.
Yep. You're on your own.
You're on your own.
I did my thing.
He talks, and then that's where lo and behold, he leaves Coruscant to meet with, drumroll, Saw Gerrera.
They have Stellan Skarsgård and Forrest Whitaker have such a great back and it's the heat of the Star Wars universe, as you said before we hopped on.
Yeah.
They're truthfully like beefing with each other. Like Forrest Whitaker, like, Saw's truthfully, like, invested in, like, the warmongering aspect of a rebellion. Like, he's all about that. And Luthen's like, cool, but I just don't care about how it gets done. I just need it to get done. So, but Saw's just like, I'm going to protect my men. Like, they're going to stay safe. And, Luthen's like, I don't care at all. Like,
and they're both too high priority to each other to kill each other.
Right.
Because that's probably what one and the other probably would do.
Yep.
In any other situation, they would probably kill the other, but they both know too much about each other.
Yep.
So to like make moves on one another.
Right.
And man, it's like you said, it is very like Heat-esque, where you get these two great actors in a room and you just let them talk.
Yeah, and this show does that well. And again, I guess the argument people are making is this show's boring, and just because there's no lightsaber battle or there's not a Mandalorian flying around, I don't think that equates to boringness. I just think that equates to just how you go about crafting, good dialogue to make the story progress. And I think they do a good job. It's the best, in my opinion, that Forrest Whitaker's been in the Star Wars universe. Yeah. He still has his his grand proclamations and his his funny way of talking, but like you feel like truthfully he is the leader of this rebel group that's been through a lot of crap through the last couple of years. Like he has been tortured by the purpose of what he's seen, and then you introduce a person like Luthen who doesn't have that same loyalty. Like that's what I think it is. It's the loyalty between the two of them. Like Luthen really has no loyalty to anybody but the rebel cause and himself. But Saw has the loyalty to his people, but sometimes that means like I have to be prideful, and other aspects of the rebellion isn't as important as my aspect of the rebellion. So it's a really good. It's really interesting, kind of the dynamic that they have.
Speaking of being tortured,
oh man,
Bix is captured by Didra.
Yep.
And man, does she just go right to work.
Yep.
You know, it's Deidre's an interesting character because, like, she is positioned in a way that, like, you kind of want her to move up the ladder.
Right, yep. Mm-hmm.
And then when you see her move up the ladder, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, she's really about her business. Like,
yeah, she's ruthless, and she tortures Bix horrifically.
Yeah. That line she had in the last episode where she's just like, I want him alive. I am not going... She's like, do not make me repeat myself. I was just like, she is 100% about her business.
Yeah, and it's again, it just shows kind of like the lengths to which the Empire will go to snuff out this rebellion, because by this point, the ISB, you know, has essentially bought into the idea that the rebellion, this Aldhani heist is much more than just a simple robbery. Like, it was a statement. Yeah. Yep. You know, this truth that it is their manifesto to the entire galaxy that the Rebel Alliance is the new tour de force. Like, we're gonna upend the entire empire, and we're gonna show you that they don't have as much power as they're trying to present to you, and that they're evil. They're not these peacekeepers. They're warriors that just want to kind of control us for the rest of our lives, and we just can't have that. Yeah, and then, you know, what happened, you know, one of Cassian's crew members is euthanized, and that's when, like, the finality finally sets in for Kino, especially, that, like, there is no escape. Yeah, he watched this old man die in there too, and just kind of looking at it, you got to think that Kino it's frightened, but it's like fight or flight frightened. Like, he truthfully is just like, I have to get out of here too. Like, it's not, I'm gonna die in here. I'm not dying in here. I can't. Or at the very least, you know, and we get to this revelation in episode 10 that maybe he did not ever plan to get out. Yeah, he wanted everyone else to. Yep. Because we get to episode 10, and again, the way the show is structured is really brilliant. Yep. These 4 episodes really kind of set the stage for the escape. Yep. And then episode 10 comes, and it's time for the escape. And it's all the delivery from the payoffs are just they work every single time. So you have 1 to 3. It goes to the corpos going to Ferrix, and then it gets Cassian on this idea of, like, maybe the rebellion has a little bit of validity. Then you go to 4 to 6, and it's this payoff of, this is how this heist needs to go. You have this new team. You have this ideas that are being presented, and then 6, it gets there, and it has a lot of poetry behind it. And then you get to 7 to 10, and again, it's this prison arc where it's just like, this is the oppression of the Empire, and we're going to put you to work. And Cassian's like, I'm not staying here. I can't. But the through line of all of these, it's these ideas that are presented about the ideas of war, like these ideals and these themes of war, all presented through. So 10 ends, and that's where I said the third monologue, and Andy Serkis just delivers an incredible one. The climb is back, like you said, the climb is back. But again, what the most important piece of that is the understanding, like, nobody can stop us. If, like, there's not one person that can stop us. Like, we control this prison now. Like, we can control the Empire if we truthfully need to. So they get it done. Man. Oh, man. And then it gets to the end. You find out where this planet is. It's in the prisons in Notion, just like the Raft from Marvel Comics and the Marvel movies. And then they break out. It's great. All the men are diving into the ocean and swimming. And then what does Cassian say? Whatever happens now, we made it. And you're like, yeah, this is incredible. And then they look back at Kino, and Kino says, can't swim. And they're just like, what? He's just like, I can't swim. And that's the last you see of Kino Loy. And it's so genius that they didn't show anything beyond that. Yeah. You don't know, but it's the look that Andy Serkis gives, where it's just this understanding right then and there. It's just this he did exactly what he needed to do. Whatever his fate is, he served his greater purpose. Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, and you talk about fantastic monologues. This episode gives us 2 of them. Yeah, so the epilogue of this episode, essentially, Luthen meets one of, you know... He's got a man on the inside. Yep, got a man on the inside with the ISB, and I'll let you go off, because I talked about the first monologue. You can talk about this one. Yeah, this is essentially, this ISB agent essentially confronts Luthen about the convictions of his actions. He's like, look at all I've sacrificed. Like, what are you sacrificing? man, you shouldn't ask that.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have said that.
I'm still in Skarsgård from Good Will Hunting. You shouldn't ask me what I sacrificed.
Because he goes into this brilliant monologue about, I have to use the weapons of my enemies to help defeat them. Like, I essentially become a monster.
Yeah.
I think he says, I forget what the exact line is. I'm fighting for a sunrise that I'll never see.
Yep.
Essentially, like he's saying, like my sacrifice is that I'm destined to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not going to get credit for this cause. I'm never going to get recognition. I'm doing this because it needs to be done at the end of the day. And that's my sacrifice. Is I don't have any glory behind this.
Ah, man, here we go. Just a couple lines from this. I burned my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see, and the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, man. And that guy just.
I share my dreams with Ghost. Like, man.
I regret ever asking you this question.
And while this is going on, so. You want to talk about scores and putting music to movies or TV shows. What Nicholas Patel does for this, it's not this score that overpowers, it's the score that enhances. Scores should always enhance, just like the idea that Roger Deakins says, like, cinematography should enhance, not be the thing you talk about. Like, this is an example of, like, the score just crescendos into this point where it plays with Luthen what his emotion, like, if he wants to deliver the big blast, like, he does. If it wants to tone it down a little bit, it does. Like, it just accompanies him perfectly in there, too. So, all these things crafted together, it creates one of the better, if not best, monologues in a TV show. It's incredible. It's awesome.
What do you sacrifice? Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless space. I share my dream with ghosts. Man, come on, man. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. That is just fantastic writing. And then it leads to the final 2 episodes, which is like the finale arc, I guess you could say, where everything culminates. Marva dies.
Yep.
She succumbs to her illness. And Deidre exploits that because she's like, no, let them have their funeral because Cassian's going to show up.
Yep.
He has to.
Yep. He's going to come back home and, mourn his mother as well. So, and Cassian does. He goes back home. He escapes. Who does he escape with? Rogue One alum he escapes with. Again, supplanting really good seeds. I forget what his name is in Rogue One, but again, that's the idea of, like, Rogue One wasn't just, it wasn't just this one shot. Like, all these people, that's a really great point that you made. Like, all these people, it just felt like they were at the end, but there was more to their story. So I think if after we watch these 24 episodes and then you watch Rogue One, like, Rogue One's just going to be that much better after you watch that.
I agree with that.
I can't wait to kind of do that in 2 years. 2 years is a long time. 2 years is a long time, man. But again, we're setting the stage for the end. This is one of the best season finales to a show. Again, the 3 main arcs of this show, they are the 4 main arcs of the show. All 4 of them deliver on their finale too. So you get everybody kind of set up in the places. What it does, it gets everybody on Ferrix. Like, whoever the character is, the main or side character, like, it does a good job, like, credibly getting them all on Ferrix. Because a lot of TV shows and movies do this, where, like, all the characters show up in the end.
She-Hulk makes fun of this.
Yeah, like, how did everybody get here at the end just magically? Like, but this show does a good job because Cyril's there he's there to protect, what's her name? Deidre. He's there to protect her because he's in love with her after meeting her one time. He's in love with her ideas, though. I think that's why he really clings to her.
Ideas.
Yeah. So both of them are there. Obviously she's there because she's been interrogating. She wants to find Cassian. The Empire's there itself. Cassian gets back there. Like, everybody, Luthen's, yep, because he wants to kill Cassian. There's no loose end that he can have. Again, alluding back to that monologue that he had. Like, I have to sacrifice myself being a good man, and, like, to keep this rebellion going, I can't have people like Cassian. Like, I can't have variables in this. Like, I have to have definitives. I can't have variables. Like, Saw Gerrera to some extent is a variable, which I don't need. Like, I need actualities.
And then it's kind of on. We get our another great monologue, a posthumous monologue from Marva.
I think that might be my favorite one out of this entire one.
It's good.
I don't know what, like, I found myself becoming, like, borderline, like, emotional just listening to this monologue, because I don't know if it was the score coupled with it or the ideas that they were presenting, but it's just the idea of, like, she got this entire city behind her, and, like, again, it's the same thing that Nemec was doing. Like, at first she was very much like, I did some rebellious things, but, you know, I was maybe not like a full out rebel, but like, I've seen what this, you know, imperial oppression looks like firsthand. They came to my house. They were looking for my son. They were willing to kill whoever they needed to kill to get it. Like, we can't have that on these planets. We just can't.
That 1-2 punch with her kind of posthumous kind of speech, and then the Nemec manifesto.
Yep.
Is just a great way to bookend the whole season. Just a piece from the manifesto. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that, and know this. The day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance, will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there will be one too many. One single thing will break the siege. Remember this. Try. And that's kind of really, you know, looking forward, that's the linchpin of what the Rogue One mission becomes. Like, that one thing that can tip the scales.
Yep.
And that's what Rogue One kind of hinges upon.
Right.
And you kind of see the genesis of that in this season finale.
Right. And it's crafted in this way where so the story behind the season finale is they're going to have essentially a funeral, or a funerary, I think they call it, for Andor's mother, where her body gets turned into, you know, pieces that go into, or, you know, parts that go into a brick, and then the brick gets laid inside of the city, amongst the behest of Star Wars fans, I guess. So, yeah, how dare you put a brick in the Star Wars universe? But so there's a festival that goes along with this, and a celebration of life. And what a way to incorporate the actual score of the show into the actual show itself. So, essentially like a marching band starts playing, and if you look at the individual episodes, like, it's a part of an orchestra playing in all of them, and then the last episode puts it together, both in the opening crawl and then in the actual piece. Like, the whole band comes together for one, so they're marching throughout the street. That drum hit is like drilled into my mind now, just kind of, you know, but it's like this pace thing. Like, there's pace, there's identity behind the pace, like, there's something behind everything. You know what I just learned? The one Sardaukar soldier that got to speak in Dune is the same guy that hits the
nice.
Yep. Whatever you call that in the morning.
The anvil thing?
Yeah, the anvil guy. He also has that dog in him. He kicked that stormtrooper right off. He said, "This is my tower." I don't know. You didn't get a pass up here, man. But yeah, they're marching through the streets. The Imperials are they're there. They're like, they can do their little again. It calls back to episode 6. Like, they can do their little festival, but we don't care much about your custom. Like, we got to keep order.
Yeah, you guys didn't learn.
Didn't learn. So, Merva gives her speech. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know if you have that ready to pull up to give some lines from that as well. But it's truthfully really great. And it's on. She gives her speech, and at the end she kind of says, like, fight, essentially, is what it is. Like, fight. You need to fight. Like, we can't see the Imperials kind of take over.
Fight the Empire.
Fight the Empire. Fight the Empire.
A lot of people think that should have been something else. And maybe I agree. F the Empire?
Yeah.
That would have been pretty good.
The first F-bomb would have been great to drop right there.
Ah, man. The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we are asleep. It's easy for the dead to tell you to fight, and maybe it's true. Maybe fighting is useless. Perhaps it's too late, but I'll tell you this. If I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting those bastards from the start. Fight the Empire. I'm ready. I'm ready to fight the Empire.
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was fired up after listening to that.
And then the Empire's basically, all right, that's enough.
Yep.
Come with us, Cassian Andor.
And then it's on.
Yeah.
It's on. It's a full-out rebellion state. They're attacking the Empire. They're going after them. They're ready. they're ready to give their lives to the cause essentially after this, and now they have a martyr to give themselves to, and give their ideas to. Meanwhile, Cassian is looking for Bix. He's just trying to get her away off planet, but he kind of sees all this, and man, it was so emotional just watching Bix right there, like just listening to the whole thing, kind of repeating her monologue, much slower because, her mind has been melted, but
yep.
Cassian's getting her out of there. Bix's boyfriend or her husband that, through the first boulder that...
Yeah, her boyfriend. Basically.
Yeah. Who was the kid? The kid was, that was whose son? Is that Tim's son or no?
I don't know.
But one of the kids there throws a bomb. The bomb starts a chain reaction. Bombs just start going off. Surreal's there, of course, because why wouldn't he be there? And essentially, he saves the love of his life.
Yeah.
She doesn't even know how to react in that moment, too. She's very, it's very jarring for her because she doesn't... I feel like she's given herself so much to the Empire where the one thing she forgot to do was feel any type of emotion, so she doesn't know how to accept it at first. This show's so human in that way, too. So, I guarantee you, in her brain, she probably wants to say, I like you or I love you, but he's just like, you don't have to say anything about it. And I was just like, this is where this is going.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, he gets them on a ship. Cassian gets Bix on a ship. They kind of get away. And again, this kid, another mortar. And it goes back to what Luthen said, I need all the heroes I can get right now too. That's what I truthfully need. I need my Cassian Andors, later I'm gonna need my Jyn Ersos. I'm gonna need heroes right now, and that kid that threw that bomb, that's a hero that I'm gonna need later. I need these people to stay alive, and I think Cassian understood that. And he doesn't come with them too. But then that's, in my opinion, where Cassian is fully committed to the cause.
Well, and you see that in one of the final scenes where Cassian is waiting for Luthen, basically. Mm-hmm. And Cassian is hip to the fact that Luthen's there to kill him. Yep. And Cassian's like, well, you have two options. You can either kill me, or I can be a tool for you to really do this rebellion. Right. And Luthen kind of gives him a wry smile, this is kind of what I wanted all along, basically. Yeah. Right. And that's Andor. But we get a post-credit scene.
Yeah, shut up, nerds. We still got our post-credit scene.
So you find out this whole time what the prisoners on Narkina 5 have been building, and they've been building components for...
the Death Star.
The Death Star? You're the Death Star from Star Wars A New Hope.
They built another Death Star, they said in the Return of the Jedi. You know what's so, jarring about that whole thing is that the size of the pieces they were building were the size of a person, and they were when they started panning out in the end credit scene, how insignificant and small those pieces were to the entire Death Star. This is truthfully what slave labor looks like how small to them they truthfully are. They're just cogs in this machine. Yeah. So I think that is one of the most justified post-credit scenes to, get you ready for the thing that happens. Yeah. And yeah, that's Andor. I think an incredible piece of television, not just Star Wars television, just television in general. It was engaging. It was a reflection of, war and human nature in war, and kind of, how people aren't all heroes, that people need to either be practitioners, or some people are, traumatized by these things that happen to them. That comes through characters like Bix, and who gives their lives, and who truthfully are the figureheads of this, and that comes from people like Nemec. So I really enjoyed this show. It was to the point week to week I was so ready for this week to week. I don't know if it reached the and obviously I shotgunned House of the Dragon versus you watched it week to week, but I don't know if you can agree that maybe it didn't. I don't think it reached that level, but I think it had a little bit of had a strong argument.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was definitely looking forward. It was weird because these shows were kind of running concurrently, but I mean, House of the Dragon was kind of on a different level, and there was a communal aspect to House of the Dragon that there wasn't for this, because this is something that the episode would drop on a Wednesday, and then you could kind of watch it whenever you wanted. House of the Dragon was appointment television, so I think that's kind of where the difference was. But I mean, I was really looking forward after that kind of that original drop, I was looking forward to like where it was going. You know, I was intrigued. Whereas like I'm not sure if I would have felt that way. Like if it was just like the first episode in week 1, and then I'm like, okay, that was okay.
Yeah.
And then, but I think it was really smart the way they did that with releasing kind of like that first kind of prologue arc at once, and then letting the show kind of take off. I think was really smart.
I think we can kick into our scheduled program of what our favorite moments were, and all of our favorites about this show. So I will kick us off, and I will say our favorite. Let's start with our favorite action sequence. Let's get this out of the way, because I don't think this is even an action show.
No, it's not. I would say for my money, I mean, I'm probably going to refer to this sequence a lot throughout these. But the heist, the Aldhani heist from the actual start of the heist, when they hijacked the I guess you could call it I don't know what you would call it.
The ship, I guess,
the freighter. From that to the little shootout that ensues to the escape is just enthralling. It's tense. You know, it's very, like I said, it reminded me of Top Gun Maverick, where like I know the mission and how they're doing it, and I'm very nervous. And that was an incredible piece of business there.
I really like that. I'd have to say the prison break, I think it's really well done. Just kind of having somebody like Andy Serkis lead that. And again, what it does for me, it's like trickle down economics of like themes being, you know, supplanted in different people. And like, again, the show does a really good job of having your main character and not have it just work one way of like, you know, being affected by something. Like it's a two-way street. Like these people affect each other. So, it's just the understanding that he fully understands that even Cassian understands it. Like you're bigger than just this person that tells them what to do. This is why you're great, is because you tell them what to do. Like, you can lead all these men out of here. Like you can truthfully lead like these group of people out, and then these can be seeds that are planted into the fire of the rebellion too. So just that monologue coupled with them all climbing out of there. It's a tense scene. Just the idea of what the heist is like, or what the break is. Like they have the plan of the break. They get to the break and you're like, something's going to go wrong, and something immediately does go wrong. It's really well done.
Yeah, I can't argue against that. That's it's those two are kind of like the pillars of action in this show.
Let's do your favorite world building or lore moment.
Oh man,
you can't say that Force Unleashed thing from Luthen's shop.
Man, there's so many. I really liked the expansion of Mon Mothma. In a weird way, I really liked that they took this relatively obscure character from the films and made her feel super important, and like it retroactively makes her subsequent appearances and things feel more important. Like I liked that she was kind of like the conduit of like the political backdrop of Star Wars.
Because again, something that people don't understand is war is politics. That's a big piece of war. Yeah,
and it's something that like I think the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy tried to do. With like the political backdrop, but didn't quite do it as effectively.
Because it was essentially, again, it was for kids. The first two movies, so kids aren't really, you know, have to understand politics as much. But this is a show where you can introduce those thought processes. Yeah.
So I think just like the expansion of the politics and Mon Mothma's kind of character growth, which was not something I was expecting, because I was expecting more like kind of how Bail Organa was utilized in the Kenobi show. Like he was just kind of there as like a tether to like the larger Star Wars universe, and I thought that's kind of how they were going to use her in this, but like she got a lot of stuff to do.
She did get a lot of stuff to do. Yeah, I didn't think a lot of this narrative was going to flow through her as much as it did.
Right.
Like,
that's
like I don't think if you guys haven't watched it and then you do like. A lot of this show is like it almost feels like a solid like 40% of the show is invested in her. But like I said, it's the idea of politics is war without, you know, warfare itself. So that's where she comes into play. I was gonna say that one. I think it's something that's a little bit outside of the box, but it's just again for me, it's like it's not the rebellion itself. It's the people that you put in place to supplant these ideas of what it's just the prelude to the rebellion. I think is my favorite world building. Like just these random people, and like Luthen says, like all these heroes that don't know they're heroes yet. Like that's what I think is my favorite, like lore building. Like and then it gets to your truthful heroes, like your Rey Skywalker at the end, or your Ben Solos, or your Luke Skywalkers. Like those people are not put into that place without your Nemeks or without your Luthens. Like you don't get there without these people. So I think the characters themselves, I think, are my favorite lore building.
Yeah, that's very cool.
All right, let's. What's your favorite line from this show?
Yeah, it's gonna be from Luthen's monologue. It's gonna be, I think, if I had to isolate one thing from that, it would have to be the whole idea that he lives in a sunless space. His mind is a sunless space. He shares his dreams with ghosts. Like this idea of anonymity is just so crucial, and because you remember him giving that dialogue, and then his kind of like day job is like this magnanimous like art dealer, and like he feels like he should feel very important, but he knows like his destiny is to die in obscurity, essentially. And like that moment, that monologue is so powerful, and it's hard for me to not have that kind of like burned in my brain. So that's that entire monologue, and then just bits and pieces that you could pick from that monologue that I read a few lines from earlier is just, man. Yeah.
I think you can kind of feel that Nemec might be my favorite. So his monologue, I think it's awesome. It's powerful. It's just because he's like this kid. Like he's this kid that's fully in his mind is emblazoned on this thing that can go right or can go wrong. But you know what I love about him? He's not naive. That's that I think is my favorite thing about him. He's not dumb enough to believe like that this thing is perfect. Like it's to the point where like he understands who this man, like if we're willing to, like if the Empire is willing to do all these things, are we willing to pull in people like he even tells Cassian this to his face, like we're willing to if they're willing to do all these things, like we have to be willing to pull people like you and like these people that don't care about this cause, that are just in it for the money, if we're truthfully going to win this. But that monologue in the manifesto, I think it's the perfect representation of this side of the Star Wars universe, and that's the Rogue One side of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the monologues were built different.
Yeah. Yep. And I think let's just transition into your favorite character.
Oh, man. Jesus. It's very tough.
It is tough.
It's very tough.
There's a lot of great characters in this show.
So many great characters. I think I'm going to go with Kino Loy. I think is my favorite character. I think there's something really cool about this guy who just kind of... He's almost in a similar position to where like Andor was, where like he just wanted to do his own thing. He just wanted to serve his prison sentence and then get out, and then realized that when that wasn't an option, like he found a higher calling. And like I said, that I can't swim moment is very powerful, because you know how smart Kino is, and you know that like he knows the only way to escape this place is by sea. So he knows that even by helping putting this plan together, like he knows he's not getting out, but he realizes that like everybody else can, and that to him is worth it. And just a really great performance by Andy Serkis brought this character to life. And yeah, I think it's gonna be Kino Loy for me, among just an incredible cast to choose from.
Yeah. That's great. I think he's incredible. It was such this breath of fresh air that it was because I wasn't expecting it. I just saw Andy Serkis and was just like, this is awesome. Why is Andy Serkis here in the middle of this Star Wars show? So you can tell that the sell must have been good for all these, and because there's a lot of great actors in the show to get them all in this show, because The Mandalorian doesn't share that same thing. Like this show has, 3 A-list actors, in my opinion, in here. So hats off to them. What's your favorite shot in this show?
I'm going to go back to the Aldhani heist for this. I'm going to go with it's a wide shot of all the people of Aldhani. You see maybe, I don't know, 40 or 50 of them in this wide shot, and the meteor shower kind of just flowing overhead with all the colors. It's beautiful. And I was just like, it's one of those you see one of those shots in things, and one of those things that makes you go, wow. And that was that shot for me, even though, like, it's not a thing that's really happening. It feels like it's really happening.
Yeah.
And that, for my money, is like what makes a really good, powerful shot. Yep. And that's would be mine for sure.
Yeah, that episode was it just looked incredible, and even down to the landscaping. It's something that Chloe Zhao used a lot on the Eternals, like understanding you're gonna get more of an emotional attachment to people if you're in the landscapes itself. So I think that's something that was truthfully really smart by them, and just it's one of those decisions. Like, it's a decision in pre-production. You just got to go to people and be like, are we gonna shoot this practically, or are we gonna soundstage this? Are we going to get CG? Like, what are we going to do? Like, what's the thing we're going to do? And they made their decision. I think it was the right decision. I'm going to go back to the prison arc, and I'm going to go to when they're breaking out, and just that wide of that God's eye view of them all swimming away, and you see the entire prison, and then you just see them all, like, just these small little seeds swimming away. Like, I think that's just, it encompasses that entire arc perfectly. Like, that's freedom. That's what Nemec talks about. Like, that's the idea of what freedom is. Like, they truthfully broke out of the stranglehold, which is the Empire.
That's another great one too. And I mean, I also love honestly, I do really love that post-credit shot of the Death Star. Yeah. Like, just them assembling the pieces, and like the constant panning out. Like, you're like, oh shoot. Yep. know?
While this show has a lot of great wides, this show has a lot of great closes, and it's something that Star Wars doesn't do a lot. Like, there's a lot of great closes of all their characters, like, really guts you emotionally to kind of, relate to all of them. So, hats off to them and to their cinematographer to kind of understand all those things. What's your favorite musical moment from this show?
I think it's probably, I think it's that end bit that you talked about in the finale. Like, that's just like craftsmanship of composition and like a different level. Like, the ability to stack all those things on top of one another and have your finale have the music also have its own finale. It's just is like next level stuff.
I truthfully couldn't believe that was a presence of mind. But then at the same time, I was like, like this show of all the shows on Disney Plus would go about that and would have the presence of mind to do all that too. But I think for me, it had to have been when Nemec, like, when he is reading his manifesto and it gets read. And there's also, if I'm to add another shot, if I'm to circle back a little bit, there's this medium of Cassian kind of draped in shadow a little bit, and the door kind of opens on him while the manifesto is playing, and it's just like the last piece of his journey, and the show's about to start right there. I think that was really well done. So, that's my favorite musical moment, right over the manifesto. I think Nicholas Britell just absolutely brings it, and he brings it on every project that he works on. There's a reason why he's so touted now in Hollywood, and I think he's gonna be like, if he's not already, like that Michael Giacchino level, that Hans Zimmer level, John Williams level, Ludwig Göransson level. I think you can put Nicholas Britell right there with them.
I would agree.
All right, and I think we have two more left. So, what is your favorite performance in the show?
Oh boy. I thought about this a lot. I think I'm gonna go with Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, I thought she was, man, it's you couldn't have a better batch of performers and performances to pick from. From Stellan Skarsgård to Diego Luna to Andy Serkis to even I forget the guy's name that plays Kyle Solar as Cyril Khan, but Genevieve O'Reilly brought this real neat duality to a character again that I didn't expect so much depth and duality from. Like, she does a great job of like the politicking, and then she also has like this presence about her that imbues like the idea of the rebellion. Right. Like, you see a lot more of this in the sequel trilogy from Mon Mothma. Like, the idea that, no, she is like a figurehead of the rebellion.
Yep.
And just, she performs the character with so much power and grace. And she would be my favorite performance.
Yeah. Kino Loy would probably be, Andy Serkis as Kino Loy, I think, is my favorite performance itself. It's because it's the thinking that I'm going to go further in the idea that, he's like Cassian and he just wants to be there. I think my darker turn to that is that it's the real world aspect of putting people that to have the people you're oppress the people that you're already oppressing. Like, so there's levels to it too. I think there's something that's intrinsically dark about that and just truthfully sad about it. Like, it's really sad. And just seeing that to the understanding, like, sometimes like greatness is something that's like, you know, it isn't something you are, it's something you do. Like, he finally like found greater calling and greater purpose, and just his face acting is incredible. Andy Serkis's, and he just, in his short time in the show, like, he immediate impact short time in the show he has. He affects Cassian and Cassian affects him. Their dynamic, I think, is really well. It's one of the best dynamics in the show, and it's just, again, it's just such a short punch, but a sweet punch.
Yeah, I love the, like, how many guards are on duty, how many keeps asking him, and then eventually he's just like, no more than 12.
Yep.
Like, when he finally buys in, like, it's that little line that lets you know that Kino is bought in.
Yeah.
That's really great.
All right, and then I guess we can transition into your favorite moment.
Oh, Jesus. Man, again, this is so hard. My favorite moment, I think, is gonna be one that you mentioned as one of your favorite scenes, as the Kino monologue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, there's something about a character doing a big speech on a microphone that really speaks to me. I really like the Steve Rogers one from Winter Soldier.
Yep.
So I like a character talking on a microphone to a bunch of people and
getting
just
them
like
inspired after
the convictions of like his words.
Yeah, I think that's a great word, is conviction in there. There's truthful, every single one of those monologues, like, there's something that you need, and this is allegorical for the actor giving it and like what it needs to do. Like, you need to have conviction and commitment and conviction to what you're talking about. And I think Cassian needs to give him that little nudge. But again, it's the practicing of them. And like, you had this in you all the time. It's what Mama Andor talks about. Like, you just need to be awake. That's the only thing that nobody was. They weren't awake yet.
Yeah, just like that. I mean, just the word, like, when you talk about favorite moment, that scene feels like a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that, like, you feel like you're watching something and you're and those characters are a part of something truly special in that moment, and that's why it's my favorite moment of the show.
That's a really good one. It's a really good one. I'd probably have to say my favorite moment was, it's funny that we're kind of flipping back and forth. My favorite moment would probably be the climb from Nemec, and then just kind of having the whole sequence draped by the eye, as they call it, the full out, just this emerald meteor shower raining down, and kind of, you know, it's beautiful and it's poetic, because it's like they're escaping through this thing that the Empire said was nothing, and that these people are zealots for even following. It's the thing that was able to help them escape through everything. The sequence was well done. Like, the TIE fighter screams, like, there's still TIE fighters in the show, like all the Star Wars things you like, they're still here. But there's just this level of grand to it. There's just this big idea, like, there's just this grand big, like, we did it, like, this is the first punch, like, this is the first punch that we needed. It's that, and I think it's just my favorite part about it. It's not that it does it for the show, but it does it for the whole universe. What project you look at, if it comes after that, like, all of that started with this heist right here, with this moment of Nemec. It's hearing, again, like, just how Kino did, it's hearing Nemec tell him, climb, like, one of his final words, like, climb, like, I'm going to get you out of here, like, I'm going to do the thing I said I was going to do.
Yeah. Man, it's just a great show.
Yeah.
Just a great show.
Last one, your favorite episode of the show.
It's episode 6.
Episode 6.
It's the heist, the Aldhani Heist. The eye is just, it's the perfect crescendo to what those previous episodes were building to, and the character moments, and it's the genesis of what Cassian's potential is as a member of the Rebel Alliance. Sure. You know, you see a lot of, obviously throughout the show, you see kind of like the foundations of what the character is eventually destined to become in Rogue One, and this is the beginning of that. Yep.
I'd have to say the season finale is my favorite episode. Again, I don't know what got me emotionally in that episode, but I just think it's it's everything paying off. You had 3 previous payoffs to 3 arcs, and then those 3 previous payoffs paid off in the final arc. I think it's the understanding to get Nicholas Patel's score infused in the actual what the episode is about. There's this tempo to this episode that I think is really good. Like, there's a really good like train track that keeps going throughout the episode, and then it just all goes to the head when she says fight the Empire, and then and then that's what this rebellion's about. It's fight the Empire, fight back. Like, we're not dead in the water. Like, we can truthfully overthrow these oppressors. So that episode, everybody's arc feels justified. Everybody feels justified being on Ferrix, even though that can feel clunky. I think they did a good job about getting everybody there, and I think it's the perfect setup for season 2, and kind of, where Luthen and Cassian are going to be, what Cassian's emotional and what his mental state is like from where he was in the beginning of the show too. So, it's an incredible that's how you end a show. Like, you pay everything off. There's stakes, there's weight. It's just hats off to Tony Gilroy and what everybody was able to do on this show.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm really looking forward to season 2.
Yeah. I apologize.
Me too.
Can we erase what we said? I forget what episode we said it before. I think it was the D23 episode, because they dropped the trailer.
Because I think by the time we did the Rogue One episode, we were both like, this Andor show
might be okay.
might be pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I was just absolutely floored by it. So season 2, I'm looking forward to. I think, what is it? This is going to be it, right? It's going to be the second
24
season.
episodes. That's it, and then
Rogue One.
It's literally. I think they said I think it was down to the last shot could be the first shot from Rogue. Like, that's how it could be. So we'll see who pops up in season 2. I feel like season 2 could be a little bit like how the Mandalorian was. Like, we're going to see more people from Rogue One start to show up in there. I assume we're
going to see K2SO show up in season 2.
Yep. So. K2SO is probably going to show up. I think you're going to get more Forrest Whitaker too. You're going to probably get a little bit more Saw Gerrera, but there might be the demise of some characters that we like. But I want to see more out of Diego Luna, and I hope Diego Luna just starts being in more stuff. Period. Yeah.
Good on you, Disney.
Yeah, good on you, Disney.
I know a lot of people are quick to criticize what Disney does with Star Wars, but I don't think there's any denying what they've done with Andor, because it's really phenomenal.
Yeah. You gotta let your creators cook sometimes.
Yeah.
That can very well be it.
So what have you been up to?
I've been watching a lot of soccer. That's what and it's called soccer. Shout out Christian Pulisic. It's called soccer. But I've been trucking through The Last of Us Part 2. Criticisms, be darned. The gameplay is still slick, seamless. That it just emotionally is gut wrenching. I pick up that game and it's just this idea of the detritus of the end of the world. It hits me every single time. I mean, obviously, I'm not done. I can't make quick judgments. I mean, obviously, and I think a lot of people talk about the pacing in the game feels a little off just because of the Abby piece to it, because it's a very interesting thing that I can't really think that was ever done before, of kicking your main character out and sending you on with a completely new character is something that is, you gotta think in the writer's room, they were probably like, could be really cool. I just think you need to do that maybe 10 hours previous in gameplay to try to get what they were trying to achieve in there. But I don't know yet. I don't know what this is gonna succumb to. So yeah, I've been playing The Last of Us, trying to finish Barry, obviously. I'm on season 3. I can't wait to finish that show. It's award season, so over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to hopefully watch the following 4 movies. The Fabelmans by Steven Spielberg, After Sun by Charlotte Wells, which is getting just critically acclaimed as one of possibly the best movies of this year, one of the most emotional movies of this year, with Paul Mescal. I want to see Banshees of Inisherin with Colin Farrell, and I believe, what was the last one? In Causeway with Jennifer Lawrence. I want to start to knock those out, so I want to start to get some of these, smaller movies and these non-superhero movies some love, because you guys need to watch more movies. Watch everything you can. There's more than just Star Wars and superheroes out there. There's a lot of regular stories that you guys can relate to out there. So make sure you watch as much as you can.
How dare you?
Oh, sorry. You've been taken over. You're pre-Clean Lloyd to Disney right now.
Yeah, I have finished God of War Ragnarok. Some 62 hours later that I put into this game.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it was incredible. It's one of those things where how do you improve upon a game that was already quote unquote like a masterpiece. And they did it, in my opinion. The gameplay is much more fluid. Everything flows from one thing to another. A couple really cool new mechanics. And then, man, there's the characters and the writing. Every single character, whether it was an existing character from 2018 or a new character that was introduced in Ragnarok, got a super compelling arc and just satisfying conclusions to everyone's characters, just transcendent performances all the way around. I can't speak highly enough of Christopher Judge's performance as Kratos, just bringing just gravitas to every single word he utters. Man, Ryan Hurst, who a lot of people will know from Sons of Anarchy, does the voice of Thor and is just very Josh Brolin-esque in his performance as Thor. That character goes in a variety of directions that I didn't expect. I hope you like your depressed alcoholic dad arcs, because that's kind of the arc that Thor goes on in this game. They really explore this idea that Odin doesn't view him so much as a son as he views him as like a weapon of war, and he treats him as such. Yeah, it blew me away from start to finish. The final, I will say, probably 4 hours are some of the strongest 4 hours of any game I've ever played as far as like a conclusion. Just objectively one of the best games I've ever played. I'm so glad that it finally came out and it met and exceeded every expectation that I had for it. We have the Game Awards coming up in a couple weeks where it feels like God of War Ragnarok and Elden Ring are headed for a collision course as far as Game of the Year. I fully expect Christopher Judge to get his flowers as far as the performances awards go. I think it's... I forget who beat him out for it in 2018.
Was it Red Dead Redemption 2?
It might have been. I'd have to.
It might have been Arthur Morgan.
It might have been. I would have to look at that up for who beat him out for best performance 2018. But it does feel like he's destined for that. Oh, you're right. It was Roger Clark.
I had a feeling.
Who beat him for
Dutch.
Which, I mean, hard to go against that. But
once they put him on the I'm dying arc, he went into a different level.
But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But other than that, just... Man, that was a great year for just performances.
Yeah. It was Spider-Man. That was the superhero game is back.
Yeah. And looking forward to Spider-Man 2 next year.
Hopefully we get a little announcement or something at the Game Awards. I have a feeling that's what they're... I think Tony Todd just tweeted something like, get ready for something. So I think the Game Awards is, in a couple weeks?
Couple weeks.
So I have a feeling that we're going to get a little something, because that game's supposed to come out the middle of next year. Next year is going to be an incredible year for games.
2023.
Final Fantasy, Spider-Man 2.
Two Final Fantasies.
In 2023. Yep. Spider-Man 2 is probably the top dog of 2023.
Jedi
Fallen Order Part 2. Yep.
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
Yep, man, that's coming.
Love that. I might have to just after. That's how I felt after watching the Guardians holiday special. Like I was like, I need to play Guardians of the Galaxy again. And then I felt the same way. I watched Andor. I'm like, I gotta play Fallen Order again
because of Saw Gerrera.
Yep. We love you, Forrest Whitaker. Add Forrest Whitaker to the whiteboard.
Oh, man.
Yeah. We have decided that Al Pacino, specifically from Heat, has been added to the whiteboard. Don't ask us why. It's the rules. We don't make the rules. We just follow them, much like Keno Loy did before his rebellion.
So, yeah, 2023 is going to be fun. Looking forward to, in a couple weeks when we start wrapping up 2022 also, because it's been a heck of a year.
Yeah.
But, until then, you can follow us on Twitter at ProjectINF_pod. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
Thank you very much. You can follow us on Facebook. Every episode posted every Wednesday. We're getting back to our Wednesday schedule, folks. Yeah. It was a little hectic for a while there, but we're getting back to our regular Wednesday schedule, so that's when you'll be hearing this week. And next week, we're going to talk about...
the Guardians of the
Galaxy holiday special. Yes.
And little non-spoiler... the Guardians are back.
Yeah.
The James Gunn Guardians are back.
Yeah, which was one of my criticisms for Thor: Love and Thunder, that the Guardians felt very much like caricatures of themselves.
Right.
Didn't really feel like that Guardians feeling.
Even the entirety, like the feeling itself, like they didn't
felt off.
But just no, it feels bad. Like, and it felt special. Like if this was like the prelude to whatever Guardians 3 is, like I don't think I'm emotionally going to be okay by the time that movie, like, I have a feeling that movie is going to break a lot of people's hearts in a good way. So I can't wait because I think that'll be the last thing that James Gunn probably does for Marvel too. So
yeah,
I think he's we're
probably gonna be a big Palm Clementif discussion episode. I think. Yep. So she was great in that. So we'll look forward to that next week. And from the Nemec of the podcast.
Yes. I think I am very, what's the word I'm looking for? I think I am very broad strokes, but very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Idealistic?
Yeah, sure. Idealistic, I think. Yeah. I think I'm a lover of things.
So from me, from the Nemec of the podcast, we'll be here next week. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Guardians Holiday Special coming at you next week. Until then, we will see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.